but I, at the same moment, had hit that sound. So as he's making it, the real sound is happening. And he went, what?
I'm telling you, I'm just sharing. I was stressed out because we couldn't really make this look right. I was like, oh no, this still does not look good.
Basically, all I do with Isaac is I go, God, this is pissing me off. And he either creates a button or a setting and then fixes it. And
sometimes in the middle, I piss you off more. We just wrapped up an awesome shoot with agency partner RVRB. We worked with them to produce a really awesome set of videos with their client. We had a custom-made Unreal set done for them from our Unreal team. It was really exciting to kind of get that put into place alongside a lot of other stuff we really excel at. So we were creating a series of videos for them where we got to live cut, live add in graphics. They got to really watch the video get made right in front of them, and that was really cool. The client ended up loving every minute of it. So we're really excited to break down for you what we did on this production. So I guess let's start with the Unreal process, because that's kind of where this project started. So Andre, how did we get started down the Unreal path for this client? What did they come to you with?
Well, it's kind of funny. They sent me here's a picture, and we can show it to you from our friends dreamstime.com. A definitely AI created photo,
which it says when you look it up. By the way,
it's so funny. It's like, what is that chair what are those chairs? If you look at them for any period of time, it's like, oh, this is stock photos. Don't know what to do, but super helpful to have the client tell us like, hey, this is what I want. So it's like, that's awesome. Love that so much. That's kind of a hilarious photo, but I get it. So then it was like, okay, well, how do we take this picture and do something with this? Like, and it's let's see, there's so many things to say. First thing I want to say is just a concept around client management. When it comes to visualization, when a client sees something that they give as a reference, I have learned more times than not, what they kind of want then is basically exactly that. They don't really want a lot of variance at all. And that's interesting because it's like, okay, I need that inspiration and I need that vision, but I also need the ability to kind of wiggle that into submission for all the different factors that we would want. So they were awesome. It's a fun thing where we're working with this agency partner, RVRB, spelled RVRB, and RVRB is awesome. They work with tons of different organizations, and we love them. And it's been hard they do a lot of like live event stuff and a lot of things on location. And so it's been hard for us to find the right client partner to come together to do this. So I personally was super pumped. Clark Campbell is the president of RVRB, and it was so cool to be able to work with him. So this is an interesting dynamic now of like, okay, so technically our client is RVRB, and then their client is the client that they brought in. And so we're kind of one removed, yet we're kind of needing to run the ship on this. So one idea was to just go, okay, what you want is a library. And we would go shoot a library. We've even have some that we've shot before. And I think we really considered using that. However, as we talked about it as a team, it became clear that having Unreal for this specific use case is going to be good. It's going to give us a lot of ability to fine tune, change colors, things like that as we go along. So this picture that you see here, what I did is I threw this into ChatGPT and told it to remove all the lines. Because I guess that's how easy that is to uncopyright something now. And then I put in a window on the side. And so I was like, okay, give me a window on the side, because I want to have some motivated light. So I had this, I sent this to the Unreal team of like, okay, now we're ready to build this. And it was interesting because what happened, if you look at that image, sorry, before you show that one, the previous one, if you look at that image one more time, you'll see one of the things that changed was the books on the back shelf, and it kind of made them all this brown color. And what I was trying to show is like, we'll make it look like the first image, the AI generated image, where you can see the shelf is much more adorned and decorated. Well, let me tell you what, communication is hard. I'm still learning how to do it. Maybe you are too. And so the first thing we got back from our Unreal artist is this. Now, of course, this isn't like lighting. And so this is first pass, not being done yet. And it was like, oh, the books being all brown like that. Of course, there's the replicated pattern, which could be fixed. But I was like, oh, that's interesting how much of a difference that made. And so the client the whole time that we're one removed from is like, hey, can we see something? And it's like, of course, all of these things with every production on planet Earth happen in a short, compressed amount of time. And so I found myself in a weird position where I knew we could get there. The timing was really tight. I was really wanting to perform well for my friend Clark. And then I was obviously also wanting to perform well for their client, because their client is our client in this scenario, right? We're trying to make everyone, and I'm like, this is not ready to show yet. And it's not the Unreal artist's fault, but I think he, doing that part of the project, took a lead on seeing kind of that tonality of the ChatGPT version of the image and kind of went with that. So we had to go through a number of layers of getting that. We started changing out the books. So I'm like, well, the books actually need to look different. I think there's an image of just kind of a wire framing or, I don't know, flat lighting version of the books. So new books got created, but now they were kind of too disparate and showing off too much. So then we finally got to this kind of bookshelf idea, where he really was following pretty closely to what the AI was generating, except the blue light or whatever, but that's a light that we could make changed colored. So one of the things we wanted to do with this is give us lots of flexibility, because this was a new client, not Reverb, but the actual ending client. We were like, okay, we gotta be able to be very agile here. And so everybody involved on the Unreal side took that, made it where Morgan, you made it set up where you could, like, to talk about some of the things you could change like pretty quickly on the fly.
Well, some of the things that we could easily change in this set was the bookshelf lighting color. That was really important. And then we had the obviously with the windows and stuff, the directionality of the sun, so we could have that land in different areas. And then we also had some lighting, they call them like God rays, that kind of thing. We ended up removing most of that. We had a way to kind of bring in light. And then we also had a way to tone the wood on the shelves. So that really helped to kind of match their branding color, which is what we ended up doing in the end. But having all of that in a single controllable blueprint in the Unreal environment made it super easy to make those changes very quickly. And that was super helpful because, again, this is a brand new client, and we want to make sure that we can match their tone and imagery when it comes to their production.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to pull up a couple of things here. So as we worked, I'm telling you, I'm just sharing. I was stressed out because we couldn't really make this look right. I was like, oh no, this still does not look good. I think there's a couple more pictures to kind of show as we're getting there. But I'm feeling kind of stressed. I'm like, this feels like a video game.
Yeah, it felt very video gamey.
Very video game. And I'm like, oh no. Now this particular thing that you're seeing here is me just videoing at the Ultimat station. But if you play it one more time,
I'm trying.
What you'll see here is this was a different shoot that we were doing, which is the previous debrief. You can watch about that. But we just took one of our computers. So the lighting, nothing makes sense here. We're not trying to key. I'm just trying to see, like, is this going to work? And I'm freaking out because it's not awesome yet. And we've got to film in a couple of days, and super bizarre things are happening. For instance, right to the side, so Jay's the one on camera there, right behind his back, you'll see this weird curved wall that has this weird angle.
Yeah. The glass from the window was causing like a doubling effect.
What in the world? Yeah. Oh, there you go. Like, this happens to be us switching it. So that's the no glasses on it. And then glass happens right there. And it's like, what the bleep is going on? Like, why does it look like this? oh my gosh, it's so stressful and it all looks terrible. And I'm like, what are we gonna do? This sucks. So we're moving forward. We've got to just keep moving forward, right? So I think one thing the studio has taught me is just push. Try not to freak out and just keep pushing forward. And that's hard to do because I'm like, man, this client is like super pro. What can I do about this? And so I'm airplaying a couple of pictures. So we finally kind of will it into submission, and we get something that starts to look okay. This is pretty good. So I sent these to the client, had Jay sit in, and hold on. Oh, dang it. I didn't want to show that one yet. And so here's those photos of the 4 shots. Okay. So there they are. Certainly like, okay, we're finally getting there. I ran it over to ChatGPT and asked what it would do with the lighting and whatever. And then that's what it came up with. And I just think that's hilarious.
I showed that picture to Rachel. Like I just like put it in her face. This is my wife I'm talking about. And she just stared at it. And it was like, I counted. It was like 25 seconds without words. And she was just like,
here's a couple of
didn't
more.
even know what to do.
Couple more awesome ones.
So Sala TM.
It's like, it's kind of like Jay. Do you have enough fingers?
I paid me.
Anyway, it's just cracking me up.
Okay.
So, but we ended up in a pretty good spot to send them. But this is the day before they're flying here. And this is a high-end client. Like they're doing some really amazing stuff. And I really want to make it look super awesome for them. So that was pretty stressful of trying to figure out. Gosh, there's so many things to say, but the next thing I'll say is we got it there, but I had an idea. So this was pretty close to the original vision they had. I put the window, right? So that wasn't in the original vision, but there's the rug, the lighting, the dappled light. Some of the other parts are very much like that original picture, and the books and some of that. We toned down some of the lighting, but we on the bookshelves, but we got it where it's pretty close. Okay, a couple of quick little secret tricks or whatever. I left this, if you go back to the airplay, you'll see in the corner this plant. I left it here knowing it's like super bright and it's kind of like really drawing attention. I left it in as something to remove. And I'm not trying to manipulate people on this, but I knew that probably is not going to stay. I mean, there's some scenario where someone would want that, but it felt out of place to me. And I think especially, let's see, on the side shot here. Yeah, so it really kind of steals the show on this side shot. So I figured this has to go. But I left it in so that I could, because it could be the client was like, that's our favorite thing. In fact, our logo is a plant.
This whole video series is about growth.
Growing the plant, and that's what we want. So there's some scenario where you'd want to highlight that. But that was probably not going to make it into the final thing. But so this is just a little, it's not a trick, but it's just my intuition said probably not the plant. But when I feel probably and not absolutely, it's something I leave in. And especially when it feels like, I think that's something the client can tell me to remove that'll make everybody feel pretty good. And so if you can kind of help them focus on which thing to change, it's a little easier to do. So that's something that we ended up taking out, but I left it there just to kind of see, like, would somebody tell me that the plant doesn't? Now, if we got closer to the actual filming and that was still in there, then I would say like, hey, let me just see what that looks like without the plant, right? But I left it in there just to kind of see. And sure enough, the Reverb team picked up on that and they were like, hey, can we see it without that plant? And I'm like, awesome. You win the prize. So we're not trying to trick and we're not trying to test, but I am always trying to think of how can I give a client a choice? And this was a good way to do that. So that was something we ended up removing. The other thing I did that was a bolder move is if you go back one more time to this shot, you'll see the wood is brown and this is what they wanted. However, I had a different idea. And so I decided, I think it should be blue. And so let me show you where we actually landed. And so to match the color scheme of the client more, we actually ended up with this blue coloration here. You can kind of toggle through these shots and show what this ended up looking like. And I just think it turned out really classy. It feels super on brand. And I was able to pick up this awesome velvet, I don't know, chair. And the end result was really cool. So yeah, so let's talk about let's see, one other thing I want to say really quickly here. Color and wardrobe matter. And so being able to kind of consolidate all of this and make it into this more uniform look, it does a lot to really unify things and make it seem really purposeful. We had a man and a female on camera. So here you can see those two different shots. We actually had to go buy that tie to make it really to get the perfect tie everything going there. So, but you can see, look how authoritative that looks. Looks how clean that looks. I love how it's like starting the same clip over his hands. Like, I am telling you the thing. But yeah, I think the end result really just turned out just money and felt just super pro and really good. So it's very important.
That was right at the beginning of a take.
That's hilarious. It's very important to focus on wardrobe and lighting and color of background and foreground and all those things together. And the last thing I wanted to just mention quickly is we did a prep day, which we are trying to do absolutely for every single shoot. It just runs every problem into the ground so that it's not an issue when, solved, so that by the time we actually film, it's not a problem. So we had an awesome prep day where we were able to really prep and pull this in. And I started with the Navy when they came in that afternoon of prep day. And I just told them before you see this, I want you to know I made a few changes from what you saw before. We can still do it the way we presented it to you, but I just want to show you another option. And so that's how I presented it to the client. So they're not like, wait, why is it blue? I thought it was brown. Instead, I just couched it with like, hey, I know what we sent you. We still have that. I want to show you this other option. And so by doing that, we were able to more clearly indicate like, hey, look, we're super flexible. And I've given them an option right from the beginning. That's an easy decision. It's like, well, I either like the blue or I hate the blue. Let's go with this or not. So it turned out to be, I think, a really great shoot. I was really impressed with a lot of things. We did a lot of different things in this. One last thing I want to say about Unreal, and then I'm going to quit dominating the conversation here. Unreal is hard to make look real because it's called Unreal. And man, it looks like a video game so much. And so what we ended up doing is finding our shots, locking down the cameras, and then taking those plates and doing a path trace. Morgan can tell more details about that. And then Isaac, maybe you could tell what you did after we did that. So Morgan, what's the path trace and what are we doing there?
Yeah, so we ended up path tracing this environment, which means we're going to calculate every bounce of light. And that ends up taking quite a bit of time. This set was already running under 10 frames a second, just because of the amount of meshes and objects and textures that we ended up having to do for all the different books. And so we ended up taking each shot, and I have 6 Unreal computers, and I set them all to path trace. And to get a single frame, it took about 30 minutes. So we knew we couldn't really render out. This is the day before the shoot, the evening. So we didn't have the time to do like a cinematic render sequence to get any sort of motion, because that would have taken well over 30 hours or something like that when we calculated it. So we ended up just being able to grab a single still. And once we had that single still, I was able to hand it off to Isaac, who brought it into DaVinci Resolve. And you want to kind of talk through what you did there in Resolve on that, Isaac?
Yeah. So at first we were like, what if we went outside to kind of film outside the window? Because what was going to happen is like, we're not going to have any movement. And Andre's talked about this a lot. Movement's what really sells a lot of these plates, what really makes a video feel like a video and feel real. So Jay and I actually went to film outside there. But when I tried to composite it in, it just didn't feel right. And I think some of that was Jay and I didn't have a great location that really matched the vibe of the set. But the outdoors, it had kind of this jungly look in the set to it, like almost. It's not exactly the right term, but it had this overgrown vegetation, foggy, rainforesty vibe that we just didn't really have a good way to get access to anything. And then ironically, it was crazy windy that night before. And so Andre always jokes about when there is movement in Unreal, it's like the plants are waving back and forth like crazy, and in real life the exact same thing was happening.
It was so funny how exactly the same. I'm like, what's wrong with the Unreal artist? The plants don't go like this all over the, just caught. And then Isaac showed the plate. It's like that's the exact same thing.
And it turns out it's really hard to loop that. That was my other big issue. There was just simply no way to make a clean loop. It just all moved too much. So we ended up not going with that. And instead,
if you go back, before you say the instead, if you just go back to the AirPlay or some of the So how did we decide? Sure, that's great. Show that one. So how did we decide to leave it like this though? Because we were still prepping. So we're not telling the client that this is a possibility. We're just prepping. And so that's fine. So the way I figured out that we could leave it like this is the client looks at this and they say, it's perfect. And when the client says it's perfect, that's usually when you should stop. And for me, it's hard to stop. And so I'm ready to maybe I could tweak it a little more. I'm always trying to tweaky. And so a practice I'm trying to do in a thing I've been saying a lot over the last, year or so, is when a client says it's perfect, I say, well, perfect. That's usually where we stop. And kind of like indicating, because what I'm doing in there is kind of just making a joke about perfect's what we're trying to aim for. But I'm also letting them know, if you've told me it's perfect, which means I'm going to stop making changes, which so far 100% of the time has resulted in them kind of laughing. And but I do that intentionally as a language sentence so that if they're like, hold on, I said it's perfect because I'm somebody who compliments a lot, but I still think the corner should be bluer. It gives them a chance to because I've told them, hey, I'm stopping because you said it's perfect. So that's where we stopped. We were like, you know what? The client thinks it's perfect. In fact, they mentioned how much they liked the outdoor trees and everything. Now I didn't get the movement, and we didn't get the movement because it would have taken
30 hours.
Yeah, 30 hours to render a 1-minute clip. So we didn't get the movement. But
and we did, there was a moment there where we were discussing, it was like, okay, do we need to go drive to Marietta to Micro Center and go buy a 5090 powered computer? But then Morgan figured out it's going to be 30 hours. I'm like, well, even if it's twice as fast, that's 15 hours. And we're shooting tomorrow. We still don't really have enough
shooting
time.
In 12.
Yeah.
Plus our entire system has to reset because of our current power supply issues with our current Unreal machines.
Yeah,
these newer and newer cards are demanding more and more power. So power is a real problem.
Yes,
across everything.
Yep, we are discovering that. Yeah, we'd have to have if we got 5090 machines to power all the cameras instead of just 6 like we have right now, we'd be doing 8 kilowatts of power for our Unreal machines.
So Jay, one of the things on lighting, we've been working through Nobe Omniscope, working with false color. Talk to us about how did that work on this shoot? How did it go?
So Nobe Omniscope, who was the sponsor of last debrief, so I talked to, not actually, but if you want to, I talked a few times about a way that we fixed something this time, and I teased it. So what I was able to do was talk with Isaac because first off, I'm not fully versed in Nobe Omniscope, so of course I go to Isaac and I'm like, hey, if I could, I'm struggling with this. So if you could, can you pull up what we have here with our subject? So if you'll look at the scale on the side, there's so many grays. I get lost in trying to figure out which gray it is from which angle of the TV that I'm looking at. But for
what gray is this versus that
versus that, and it's all in a scale that is sort of blended together, so it's very hard to understand. But if you look at her, we have a way to light her the correct way. We get the Rembrandt triangle on the cheek. We get the correct exposure on her face. We're getting the right black levels. Using that is what we were also trying to light the background with. And as we understand 44 IRE being the correct number, those grays below that green and the grays above that green just gave me the largest headache of all time. I could never figure it out. And I said, man, if I could just have a different false color to go to, and as you'll see, Isaac's about to pull it up.
Kablamo.
Now, and
This is where we started.
This is where we started, which was like how
every 5 IRE gets just one color.
Which at first was like, okay, let's try and work with it. And I was like, okay, hold on. I'm about to puke. And then Isaac, pull up the one that you created. So Isaac created the correct one right in the zone of exposure that we're looking for. And so when I'm concentrating on the background, I have this perfect array of the numbers that we're looking for with a hard line in between each. And what I noticed as I was going through and using this is the sparkle difficult parts that you feel is exactly the sparkly bits that are going to mess up the key in the combined matte. So
nice.
They correlated exactly. So when we did our false color for our subject, we used number 1, and for our false color on our background, we used this one. So, and I believe you were able to somehow do 2 at once.
Yeah, so I can actually, what I can do is basically
again, I just ask Isaac. I'm like, hey,
where is it? It's you gotta add another scope. Is it in the so you do scope, add false color in here, and then I could do this, boop, and then you can kind of switch
make them the
which
same.
one's bigger, and then load preset.
Perfect.
And then we had a bunch of different ones of these. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we were.
This was the one we ended up with. We gotta look at it again in the future.
As an example, I do think this is the one because I was looking. It was the red and yellow areas that I was kind of working on. On this shot, it looks weird right now, but it was.
Who knows? We're playing this back through Pro Presenter through whatever. It's who knows.
But after you and I discuss, and basically all I do with Isaac is I go, God, this is pissing me off, and he either creates a button or a setting and then fixes it. And
sometimes in the middle, I piss you off more.
That's true.
But then the button gets made.
But then but at the end, we have one giant 77-inch monitor playing both of those false color profiles, and I was able to get the lighting arrangement that we needed for the background and the subject, and that was the aha that I kept talking about on the last debrief, to where we were struggling with certain parts, and now I'm not going to say it's foolproof. I'm not going to say it's concrete, because like on the other debrief, we also said in a month, it'll all be different.
It's actually the opposite.
But for now, I have a lot more confidence in going and using false color, because I have 2 separate versions of the false color scale that's helping me achieve the look that we are trying to get.
One thing that I've realized I want Omniscope to do is I would love to have the ability to take some average reading out of a drawn mask. So if there could be a scope, like, because we have the vector scope here and we can see that little area of this green versus the area of this green, it'd be kind of interesting if I could go, hey, what is the difference, right? What is the RGB difference between those? That's something.
So you looking
RGB parade.
Well, if you could give me the delta between the two, no, but yeah, exactly. If you could see that difference, then yeah, you could notice. You could have it down to an exact scientific number of the difference in the exposures in different areas.
Will allow you to see this, Isaac. So you can just add in a waveform, and then you'll be able to see that.
He's working diligently on
Oh, is he doing it right?
I'm doing it right now.
I just realized it. Like, actually, I can you just do a waveform and there it is. Look at that.
Yeah, so
there's
you
your
go.
levels right there. That number right there. You'll be able to see
be
it.
interesting to try using those.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's try that next time.
Like
we have now.
It's like a thing that
all
used
of that to be said is I will give them their flowers again that Nob Omniscope seems to be a malleable tool that we're now sort of sinking our teeth into and figuring out how many ways it works. It works for the 2 ways I just said. You just figured something out literally while we were doing a debrief. And then Andre's aha of being able to use that on the composited image to then adjust black and white levels to blend the foreground and background.
So Mr. Nob,
it's actually Mr. Omniscope.
Mr. and Mrs. Scope, if you would maybe reach out to us at sponsors at socialu.com. No, seriously, we're not sponsored. We paid for Nob, but we didn't get it for free. It's just a tool that we're using. We love sharing all that stuff with you for sure.
We did have one other issue that ended up happening that we had to fix that night, though, that we did end up purchasing something for, which is that we had an air conditioner go out and start leaking. And so obviously it's super hot. It's like, starting to be summer out here. And so it was like 80 plus all day and sunny. And so Tyler,
our control room already has 2 AC units in this room, these micro splits. We have a 3rd AC unit in this adjacent room that we call the work room. That's where we have an editor machine. It's kind of where our storage and work stuff happens. And that one is the one that went out. And it's like, we'll be fine. We have 2 in here. And I'm telling you, as the day went on, it just got warmer and warmer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, we're going to film tomorrow. And this is a problem. Now, remember, make everything effortless to the client's perspective, right? So they don't need to know, hey, our air conditioner doesn't work and whatever. That's irrelevant. But behind the scenes, it's like, Tyler, go buy an air conditioner. Help us figure out what to do.
So luckily, we have this garage door right here that's got a big port in it. And so we had a port that we could hook it up to. And it's like, all right, Tyler, let's figure it out.
Yeah, tell us, Tyler, what'd you do?
Well, when we went to the store to get the device, and I bought some of that metallic looking kind of weather sealing tape. And yeah, that port I think was there as an exhaust port long ago. And when this is a manufacturing facility. So I just kind of improvised a connection there with the tape. It's, it's not very elegant, but it does work. That's some foam that came with it to kind of make a seal around the metal piece.
Oh, look at you doing.
What's your foam technique? You were explaining this to me in this video, and that's why I felt
I cut it at angles like that. So
why is it playing at like 4x speed now? What's happening?
He had some caffeine.
Take a straight piece and cut those cut those angles like that. It makes little keystone shapes.
Nice. Good thought. We'll see.
You have to do it that fast, apparently.
Tyler, I would have never, ever figured out how to do that like that on my own. So
I've just done so much with materials over the years that I think of things like that. Anyway, got it all cooked up, and man, that thing was pumping out cold air so fast.
It feels like the coldest air I think I've ever felt from an air conditioner.
Yeah.
So that's a review of the LG portable air conditioner.
Yeah, there you go.
Which brings us to our sponsor.
It was easy to set up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. It felt from manager Andre's perspective like frictionless. It was just like, yep, we have a problem. We have an air conditioner. We've turned it on. Because when Unreal, and we're running Unreal on 4 computers, maybe, it was, it really, those
are 800-watt computers, so
it
we're
gets
still close
hot
to
fast
5 kilowatt
in
there.
Yeah, it got hot real fast. So way to go.
Well, and all these TVs, this wall of TVs. It turns out TVs produce a lot of heat.
Everything we do we're just hot, make a lot of heat. So great job on that. That solved it, and got us through that production. $500 expense. You never know when you'll have it, but I mean that was an easy $500 expenditure. It's like and the client actually. So Reverb's our agency, and then the client that's everybody's serving. The head of that ended up hanging out in the control room, which we love that. Like that's awesome. And you never know like when that's going to happen or when they're like, now you guys got it. I'll hang out over here in the conference room. So I loved it. I think it was better to have that, but I was like, man, I'm glad we got that extra AC in here to get it back to normal temperature.
One thing that was really awesome about them being here for the prep day, by the way, is that we got to solve issues like this. We got to recognize them and fix them. We're not trying to fix it during a filming day. Also, though, it was really fun. I've realized prep days are awesome for us for B-roll. So I got to shoot a lot of B-roll of the talent who's going to be out on stage, us kind of getting everything dialed in for them and talking it all through. And a group of them had to leave to do another task, and I went and edited together a reel of all of this stuff that was happening. And so I edited together this reel of all this footage while they were gone. And so when they came back from this little excursion, playing on all the TVs was a reel of us getting ready for their filming day that they were there for.
Sweet.
It was really cool. It was sick. And you saw them like, what? They really pointed it out and it made a big deal of it. Cause it was like, how do you have because you had it all slow motion-y. And
yep. Yeah, it looked.
We had their logo on and a little color grade overlay on it. And it looked very much on brand.
It was funny, though, because I was doing this. I was prepping this, and I'm sitting there, and there's 1,000 other problems that happen while I'm editing this thing together, and I'm making sure, because I want to make sure the colors are decent and everything works, right? But, there's Unreal stuff that we're trying to fix, and there's the air conditioner that's broken, and then there's the Reverb team has graphics for us that we need to make sure work, and they need to verify. And so they're doing all this stuff, and I'm sitting there like, oh, man, this feels like the lowest priority, but I'm really glad I ended up getting it done and getting it up and running. It was very important.
It blew their minds. Well, let's talk about the filming itself. One thing that was interesting is Reverb had some awesome graphics. So they were doing these in After Effects timed graphics. So the way we pulled this off is we had the client do a rough read of their scripts before they came to us, where they just voice recorded, but just so we could hear their cadence and their speed. And that was all Reverb's idea, by the way. And then Reverb took that and paste together, paste, P-A-C-E-D, paste it out so that it was not P-A-S-T-E-D. They paste it so that each animation element came in at the cadence that they were presenting. Now, of course, when they actually present in real time, it's going to be a little different, but it was close enough that we could cue these graphics and hit them as they're doing the talk. So the client experience is especially the head person that was sitting here. He was sitting actually where Isaac's sitting. Directly in front of him is one of the he's in the front row of the control room. And so he's able to watch it happen. We can't really show you that because it's got some of their content in it that we can't display, but he's watching in real time us cutting between the different shots. And we had the animator export with an alpha layer. And then we played that back through ProPresenter, and boom, he's seeing in real time, like watching the video pretty much. I mean, it was pretty tight.
It was like, impressive how often the speakers were nailing the timings. And even if they're a little bit off, like it doesn't matter because he knew that the timings were a little bit off. So he's not sitting there like, why is the timing wrong? Like he understands that that's how it's working, but it's close enough where he gets a sense of the video. He gets a sense of, is this the performance I want? Is this who I want on there? It was very fun to kind of get to do that. It felt like putting a satisfying Lego set together where it's like, oh, look, it's just all the videos being made.
It was super awesome. So I think that for me just felt so clean and so strong because it's like he knew when he left that he absolutely got the video and the performance he wanted because he literally watched the video being made in real time, understanding, like you said, that it'll be tightened up a little bit in post. So that's unbelievable to have it happen at that speed. And I think one of the things that's important for studio people to understand is the customer values speed. And so when they see it like, hold on, the video is happening right now in front of me as I'm watching it, that's communicating to them like, we're going to get this video like very quickly. And that's a super powerful way to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. They literally were talking about, they also had a very high-end podcast solution that they were doing through a different channel, a different partner. And they were talking about, I think we're going to have these videos back before we get the podcast back. And these are much more refined, shorter content, lots of graphics, lots of very very tight messaging. And so it's kind of funny, like, yeah, you probably will, because these are basically done. Just someone's got to go in and just fine tune it a little bit. So that was super awesome. I think they walked away feeling really pumped about the experience they had for sure on this. Let's talk a little bit about key fill though on that, because we did run into an issue, Isaac, and so I'd love to hear.
Yeah, so we're using Pro Presenter to trigger all these graphics in real time. It's just nice. It's very easy to use. I will note up front, we have been sometimes using their more beta end of the software to test some of their new features for them, and it's normally 100% great. But an issue we were having here was our key and fill were about one frame out of sync. I forget which one was ahead, but one of them was ahead, and so one of them was behind. And so what ended up happening is there'd kind of be this, I think it was key was behind by one frame. There'd be this semi overlaid line on top as the graphics swiped across, where it just kind of was a little, you could tell, oh, that's not quite right. And then as it left, there'd be a black line trailing it. So we were just off by that one frame. And I've checked our settings and everything seems right. So I need to update it. I need to report that bug to the Pro Presenter team. But other than that, it all worked really flawlessly. And a one frame difference when all you're doing is animating in and out, it was very easy to be essentially unnoticeable for the most part. So that worked out really well in the end. It was cool to be able to have that, and it really helped you confirm, like, hey, the video's going the way we want it to go.
Talk about and I don't know who should mention this, but we've got a little note here about time management and the pacing of videos.
Yes, I mentioned this. Thank you for reminding me about this note. So you were talking to me a couple times. So they needed to do 4 videos with 2 different talent. So they were doing 8 total videos, right? But they were the same script for each talent. And something that kind of ended up happening is the Reverb team and their client kind of became pretty sure, like, okay, for this video number 1, we're going to use talent A. And for video number 2, we're going to use talent B after seeing their performances. And so something that was kind of happening was you were feeling about a little after lunchtime, like, hey, you were telling me, like, we got to get going, like, we're behind schedule here. But I'm feeling like, well, we only have, like, we're definitely going to hit everything on schedule. I wasn't feeling that time tension as much as you, so I was wondering, where was that coming from? Because for me, it felt like everybody's happy, we're hitting things on time, and they're all cool with how it's going. I'm not trying to slow us down, but everybody seems cool with it. So what was happening there?
Okay, yeah. So, well, right, because I'm kind of hanging out with the client a little bit more while you guys are in here doing some of the production. And what I realized was at our current pacing, if we didn't change it, we actually would finish about 30 minutes after our expected normal stop time for the day. So on top of that, I found out some of them were trying to get earlier flights and get back. And then our main client, the head guy, his daughter's birthday was that same day. And he was trying to get back to his city to celebrate with his daughter that night. So there was some extra tensions of like, let's get this done sooner than later to get things on the road. And then lastly, he had mentioned twice it got mentioned, hey, we maybe at the end we'll do a 2-up with 2 of them sitting there talking together. And I'm going, oh no, how are we going to fit that in? I got to start speeding everything up a little bit to give us margin to be able to do that. I was able to talk them out of doing the 2-up. It's like, look, that's going to take at least an hour to do a set change because we're going to have to render out new Unreal angles. And, like there would just be a lot to do. It's like, right, that's a big change to do in the afternoon of the day of the shoot. So we got that to go.
I think then what was happening there too a little bit was you and I had different thoughts on that 2-up thing, where I'm thinking a little bit of like, well, let's let them take their time so that we're out of time. So we can't do that 2-up setup because it's like, well, we don't like, trying to get that ready to go. It's like, if they're going at the speed they're going at, then it's like, cool, well, they're doing their thing. But yeah, it's a good point of like, there's a lot of factors of behind there. And we ended up, I think, fine on time.
What time did we end up?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I think we finished up about 4.
Yeah, I'd have to go check.
4 p.m. So we did fine because we pushed it forward a little more, and then we'd said no to the 2-up. But if we had said, like, if they had said the 2-up is required, we would have said absolutely. and then we would have pushed into a 6 or 7 o'clock.
100%. Yeah, no, and not to say, like, I'm not trying to say, oh, I didn't want to do it at all or anything. It just was more of like oh, I see that it's maybe there's the
daughter's birthday was the most bit of information that I discovered throughout the day that made me go, he's got to get back. He lived in Nashville, and so he had to get back, which is about 2 hours north of us.
Looks like the last video, it's hard to tell. It looks like it finished by around actually,
I think they were out about 4. I think
they were leaving by 4.
Yeah. So so that seemed right. That's 3 Central Time, and felt like he could get home and still be a hero for his daughter, which was great. Speaking of the client, what about music? Let's talk a little bit about the music experience.
Yeah, so I got to be in Jay's position for this shoot because Jay, you had to be out of town for something you were working on, and so you had to be out of town, and so
I was on vacation.
I don't know why I said working on.
That boy wasn't doing any working.
I was playing golf.
But it was in Jay's seat, but I wasn't really the director. Reverb was more like the director of this shoot, so I was just kind of operating, but I got, I think, the most amount of sound effects that we have ever played during a shoot during this.
Jay doesn't. Have we even talked to you about this, Jay? Do you even know this? Like, before we're saying this now?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. We talked about it briefly.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit. So basically what ended up happening is I realized that during the shoot that I needed to be on the sound effects computer, and I had YouTube pulled up on it like the whole time, because the first thing that happened is they mentioned was it Magnum PI? What was Knight Rider was the second one, but there was something before Knight Rider.
Airwolf.
Yeah, I'm like,
it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter. I'm just saying.
One of the people mentioned something about, I used to watch Airwolf, and I said to Isaac, hey, we should play the Airwolf theme.
And I was like, Tyler was saying, I'm like, I'm Googling it right now. We're ready to go. So I play that, and then in the suggested feed is the Knight Rider theme. And they're like, oh, remember Knight Rider? And I immediately clicked and just am playing the Knight Rider theme immediately after. And it just felt like they're like, I don't understand how this is happening so fast. And then there were a couple of other times where like a perfect little sound effect we had ready lined up. My favorite was there was somebody was flubbing a take, and they were like giving him a hard time, like just to as a joke to help encourage him, like he was like feeling bad, and they kind of, I don't know, whatever.
Encouragement through harassment.
But Clark did a little bit of himself, the womp 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 sound, but I at the same moment had hit that sound. So as he's making it, the real sound is happening, and he went, what? Like he just didn't understand. And I was just, I don't know how it happened either, Clark. I hit the button at the perfect time. Funny. I knew what was needed in that moment. But
sound and music are so critical to the client experience. So if you are in your stage, you do not have a good sound system, man, get like a sound bar or something that, if you don't have a lot of money to spend, if you have a little more money to spend, get a good sound system put in. And the sound effects. So like what I have learned about sound is it's the fastest way to have a dramatic change in the energy and aura, I don't know, of the person is, man, if you hit them with their favorite song, or if you hit them with a funny or sentimental, I don't know if we have sentimental sound effects, but but like we'll do clapping, which by the way, we need some new
claps. Yes.
Ours is kind of abrupt, how it sounds right now. But even with it being abrupt, hitting that applause button is hilarious what that does to the demeanor of the person. And in the same way, as annoying as it is, movie or sitcoms are funnier when you hear a laugh track and you hear people laughing, and it's annoying and we all hate it, but it empirically has been proven it's just like whatever % funnier because you hear other people laughing. The same thing happens with we're just conditioned, and when they hear everyone clapping and a crowd going wild about them, even though they understand, of course, it's a sound effect and whatever, it still changes their posture a little and makes them laugh, and like, oh, it leaves them with a really positive experience.
And if you have a very sarcastic person, they love it when you hit the booze even more.
Yeah. So funny. Right. Yeah. There's times where Jay will hit that and then the client is like not impressed. And it's like, oh, next up is a boo.
Yep.
And of course they don't know any of this. And then we boo them. And then that makes them laugh, because then that's the opposite of anything they expected we would do. And so interrupted defense mechanism is what we're always trying to exploit there.
What I've learned through this, though, is we're actually going to be implementing in our rack redo, which be sure to follow us on Instagram. Check out. We're going to be posting, Morgan and I, as we're redoing our racks here at the studio. We got a lot of changes we're making. As a part of that, we're going to be implementing a music computer, because for a long time it's come from Pro Presenter or whatever. Like, there's just been multiple computers we've used. We're like, we need a dedicated music only computer. And I've realized that computer must be signed into Apple Music, which is our kind of streaming service of choice. It also must be signed into YouTube Premium. It has to have a YouTube Premium account that's logged into it that has no ads, so that way we can pull up anything. Because the lady who was performing that talent, she had her, like, we're asking, I love asking people, like, what's your hype song? And for her, it was like what she said, she mentioned she was a University of Texas student and was like clearly proud of their sports team, and so I found their fight song and played that for her, and it was literally became her fight song for the day. And it's like, well, that's not on Apple Music, right? So we definitely need that ability to pull up something and not wait for 40 minutes of YouTube ads, because they go forever these days.
So to just wrap this up, the last thing I'll say is, at the end of the day, I always try to ask every client that's here, hey, how did you feel about today? Is there something you wish we would have done better? Is there any feedback you have that could help us be a better studio? And so I'm not really saying like, hey, which thing did we suck at? But I am giving them that very strong opportunity to tell us. And so I've got two bosses, right? I've got Reverb as my boss, and then I've got their actual client as the super boss, the final boss level. And so I was able to ask all of that. Two things happen. The super boss client says, hey, listen, we've done this a bunch. We've never had an experience like this where we've been so well treated. The team was so great. Everything was awesome. It basically just nothing but amazing kudos. And this particular person really knows. They've definitely been around a lot of different productions. So that was super impactful for me. And the fact that he sought me out to kind of very directly tell me that, it really meant a lot to me. Oh. On the way out, the lady that was on screen, I said, hey, you have any feedback for us or whatever? And she said, it's interesting. We're talking a lot about hospitality and, kind of like 5-star hotel experience, because they're a very high-end organization. And she was like, we just saw that. I'm super paraphrasing what she said, but we saw that modeled all day long with you guys. And it was really impactful, and it kind of going to take some of those concepts back to the team. And it's so funny because, and I even went ahead and said all this, saying like, it's interesting. We have something $1 million worth of gear and tech, and we have this incredibly talented and sophisticated process and team, and all of this, and over and over and over. And we somehow made Unreal look pretty good. It's like, this looks pretty real. And over and over and over, it comes down to, how did you treat us? And I was saying to her, I was like, it's funny because the things you're mentioning are actually pretty easy to do. It's like, we just found out what kind of food you like, and then we serve that. We just found out what kind of music you like.
And one of the talent on screen had a Celsius the day before, and I was like, when he set it down somewhere, went to another room, took a picture of what flavor it was, and went, well, all right, let's buy this flavor of Celsius.
Right. 100%. And, little things like some of the other clients, we would just watch which drink we already knew. They'd given us kind of this vague understanding of the drinks. And then I just watched which ones they picked. And then if their drink is empty, then, somebody's bringing in a drink that's sitting it down. That's just the same drink of whatever it is they drank before. So I don't have to ask like, which flavor do you want? I already know, because I already saw what flavor they picked the last time. And, you would think that stuff maybe even doesn't register or isn't a big deal, but I'm telling you, that's the big deal. Like that's the thing that makes people feel seen and known and heard and important and valued. It's super big deal. So if you're like, should we spend more time on this or more time on hospitality? I'm just telling you, like, pay attention to the people, treat them well, love them well, and be authentic about it. We're not trying to manipulate them. We're trying to literally serve them the best we can. And that seems to reap dividends. I mean, they were already saying how they're going to bring the president of the company back and they're going to do some more stuff with us. And I think the last thing I'll say is when you work with an agency partner, it's all about elevating the agency, right? So like our job is really just helping them look and be amazing, right? We're not trying to we're not trying to compete. We're just a supporting wing that's trying to help elevate them in front of their client. And so we're always looking for ways to win. And one last thing that just came up that was impactful to Clark, the president of Reverb, and it wasn't a posturing thing that we were doing, but the client said to us, hey, we have a green screen thing. We could really use some help. Maybe we can hire you to help us with the green screen, whatever thing that they wanted help with. And I just said, absolutely, we would love to help you. All you have to do is just talk to Reverb and work it out with them. And, you know, if we're the right fit for that, or maybe they'll choose someone else, but we would love to be able to support you any way we can. And that meant so much to Clark because it was a simple thing to say. And I said it in front of him, but it wasn't because he was there. It's what I would always say, right? Because it's like, well, this isn't my client. You know, I'm just a participant here. And I think so many, especially early on guys, I see this happen a lot, or single solopreneurs will try to poach and like take and like, absolutely, why don't you contact me after? Here's my number. And instead it's like, don't do that. That sucks, because now that puts the client, your actual client, the one that's paying you, the agency, in a place of fear where they're like, I don't know, are you going to try to poach my people, or what are you going to do here? But instead, when they can know, like, look, we're not going to try to take your person. Like, we want you to be involved every time. You brought them to us. You made us successful and we made you successful. Everybody made everybody successful. Why would we stop that? So just don't do that. Don't try to poach. And then secondly, be a good partner and always push back to, don't think like, oh, this is my opportunity to get in direct. Instead, think, this is my opportunity to be able to show how we're a cohesive team. And that speaks not only to the agency that hired you, but that also speaks to that other client that says like, look, I'm going to take care of whatever. Now, it could be down the road, something happens where then I go and talk to Reverb, whatever, and we both decide like, yeah, this is fine. But I would never do that without that decision being made collectively as a group. So be smart about your channels. Be smart about working with an agency. We want the agency to continue. They're working with all kinds of customers that you're never going to get in front of otherwise. So be smart about really holding that relationship in a value. The actual value is not getting to that end customer. The actual value is building the relationship with the agency to continue to help them grow. So that's the end of my soapbox, but something that really I feel passionate about and want to encourage each person to do, and to have a strong sense that you'll always take care of the agency. That helps the agency, it helps the customer, and it helps you in long term. It always leads to more success. Thanks for taking the time to watch us on these debriefs. It means a ton to us, and we have so much to show you guys. We're anxious to show you some really exciting things that are happening.